Welcome to the 7th episode of Sawdust Nation with Josh from North Country Woodworking and AJ from Crafted in New Jersey. What's going on, Josh? What's on your bench?
Hey, man. Well, I'm obviously getting in the shop a little bit more. So let's discuss the hammers. The hammers are gone. I finished the hammers. So they came by and they picked them up. I thought they turned out really good. Obviously, if you've been following along, they have changed a little bit from what I originally wanted to do, but that's what the customer wanted. So there's that discrepancy of like what we really want to do versus, what the customer really wants. I had to scrap some of the runes that were going to go on the 45 degrees on the sides there, and kind of dial back a little bit on that front. They liked the leather idea, wrapping around the handles, but when I went to go do that, it was very uncomfortable to hold it. So I had to scrap that, which in the end, I kind of glad that I did. If I used a different type of wood, I probably would have liked to cover it up, but that cherry and that walnut combination just stood out, and I thought it was a really good compliment to each other. They loved it. They took them home. It was one for him and one for his boss. So I'm hoping to see some pictures of them actually using it in their workplace.
Nice.
Yeah, man. And besides that, old rugged flag, my old nemesis, my love, whatever you want to call it, she's gone. She was sold today. I gave it to a military member. She's in a good home. That is another project that I had some troubles on. I learned a lot from, and I was sad to see it go, but happy I found a home. I was expecting it to go to a very particular type of client, and that client was found. So that was nice to see that, find a good home. Well, I've been cleaning up my wood shop a little bit. I got the extra space that I cleaned out the other week. I have pretty much all my hardwood now located in that one area. I went and I bought a wood rack and I hung it up above that area. That way I can put smaller stock. Originally I was going to put the 4-foot stock, and looking at it, I think what I'm actually end up doing is just keep that corner, all the hardwood, all the really quality wood, and then do a cleanup of the shop and get rid of all the scrap pieces that have been hanging on for dear life for whatever reason. I'm going to use that 2x2 inch square piece of plywood someday. My neighbors love it when I do that, because what I do is I take that, we send something out on like a Facebook or Messenger, and they all come by and they get their scrap wood so they could burn it for, for a month or so before I do it again.
Nice.
And then I got some other orders in this last week as well. I got an order for our cornhole boards, similar to the ones I did before. They really like them, so I'm going to be doing that. What else? I have a United States outline that are going to have the states lasered in. And basically with that, what you do is the customer's going to take pictures every time they visit a state. They're going to take a picture, cut it out to the shape of the state, and kind of put it on there. So that's going to be a fun little project, but I won't be getting to that till later in October. I got the USO job. They actually contacted me again with dimensions. I priced it out, and we're just waiting for them to approve the price.
Nice, nice.
So it's been a fairly busy week. Lastly, but not least, I think I sent you a package that you have not received yet.
They're taking a tip from my book of procrastination. We'll get to it when we get to it.
Yeah, it is the COVID time frame too. I give them a little bit more slack during this time because it's a little more difficult to navigate these waters. And then the very last thing, I guess, is I get a field trip to New Jersey Woods Forever new location this weekend. Pretty stoked about that because I want to see how they're setting everything up and their operations down there. And Mike, the owner of New Jersey Wood Forever, his birthday was actually today. So happy birthday, man. If you're listening, when you do listen, happy birthday from us here.
Yeah, happy birthday, Mike. And I'll definitely have to come down and, visit and definitely pick up some slabs. I mean, everything that he posts always looks amazing. And I've never heard of Hollywood except for the location somewhere out in California, I guess. For me, I looked at it, on the post that he did, and it looks like amazing, amazing wood. I don't know anything about it. I just see it, and maybe one day I'll get to work with it. I'm excited to hear how the new location is, because you are much closer to see what they got in store. I'm kind of curious.
Well, one of the best things about going there is he's a woodworker too. So he can sit down and kind of explain to you what he would use that for in his own perspective. Yeah, man, that's what I got on my bench. What do you have on your bench?
Well, I got a 3-foot and a 2-foot wavy flag. I got two 2-footers. Both 2-foots are actually kind of killing me because they're not, they don't want any burn on them. And I love burning them because it pops the grain aspect. So then you get to see all these different takes of how one, how the stain's going to take, and two, how just the wood just comes to life once you burn it. It's pine. I like pine because I like to see the differences in the grain, and not every piece is the same. Even though I buy the Baril wood from Home Depot, it's just a regular standard 2x4, and every piece that I cut is always different. And it's nice because once you put them all together, they don't look all the same. They burn completely different. I actually just posted something up tonight of the 3-foot flag after I got it sanded and burnt, and the grain just completely takes it over. And once it got burnt, the grain actually made it even look more wavy than it actually is. And I was kind of scared on that because once I carved it out, I didn't go deep enough. I didn't do a real heavy carve on it as much as I wanted to. But after I burnt it, it looks like it's going to turn out the way I wanted it to. But I'm also trying different techniques on how to carve. I don't want it to look like a cookie cutter, so I kind of experiment when I carve. I take my pencil, I draw out kind of rough lines on where I want the highs and the lows, and I tweak it from there. And of course, while you're carving, it's kind of how the wood wants to get carved. Sometimes I'll be running the Kutzall disc that I use along the line, and next thing I know, I'm kind of feeling the wood's a little bit not wanting to go that way. So then I'll start carving it a little bit different, and the wave takes on a completely different shape. But the 2-footer that I carved out, it's of course smaller, but the wave on it is a lot deeper. I don't know why it is, but on all of my flags that are larger, I always tend to do a lighter carve on them because I think I'm trying to, because the flag's larger, I want larger waves. And I think what I'm doing is I'm overcompensating on like the low spots and not really doing it the way I should. I should put more waves in it and then be able to carve a little deeper. It's a little hard to explain without, showing somebody. For the most part, everything's coming together. The 2-footer, I have to sand tomorrow and then get it stained. I'm on a real tight time crunch with those because, of course, I procrastinated and didn't do them when I needed to. And next thing I know, I look up and I'm like, oh my God, I got 3 flags that are due yesterday and I didn't even start them. And it was a lot, I just got held up because now I'm helping my pops with his new house that he just bought. I got stuff going on at my own house. And then, of course, work is just taking over. I'm in a refrigeration business and it's been hot. So, everybody under the sun needs repair work. So, long days and long weekends contribute to me not wanting to go in that shop. Other than that, I finally got the flocking done on that box. And let me tell you, it went everywhere. I brushed on the glue, put the flocking in it, I made a little mess around the box. Maybe 20 minutes later, I turn around to the bench that was behind me and I'm going, why does everything look a little dark? So I wipe my hand on it, and next thing I know, I'm like, oh, that's the flocking. And I'm like, Josh wasn't kidding when he said it's going to get everywhere.
It's flocking everywhere.
Yeah, it was flocking everywhere, let me tell you. I'm scared to see how much more I'm going to find throughout this, upcoming weekend when I start cleaning up and whatnot. But I'm excited about it, and I went a little bit overboard with it because, I was watching a video and the guy goes, if you think you put enough, you probably didn't, so put some more. And so I just kept adding, and I'm like, wow, there's a lot on the bottom of it, on the base of it, because it all collects there. But, I looked at it with a light, saw a little shiny spot where the glue was, where the flocking didn't stick, put a little bit more, and I'm just waiting for it to cure. Now, here's my biggest question to you. How long did you wait before you actually cleaned up all the flocking?
I did it, probably around 7 o'clock at night. ish. And then the next day around 1, 2 o'clock, I went back and actually cleaned it out. The first thing I did is I took it and I kind of, tilted it and kind of got the majority out that way. And then I took a painter's brush, something I was going to use, a cheap one, and just kind of went over it to get the rest of it. And then once I loosened all that up, I kind of lightly blew it out and it was pretty good from there. I didn't have any issues.
Okay, well, that's good to know because it's been sitting in my basement. It's it's dry, so I don't have to deal with the humidity. So I know it's dried. But I was reading the instructions that come with the kit, and it says wait 10 hours, and then you can start taking off the excess. But wait a week for it to cure fully. And I went a week. I'm like, it should be dry already. So that's why I was curious. I didn't want to, take light air in it because I was afraid that I was going to literally take the air nozzle and just a little bit of a poof and all of it was just going to come spraying all back out.
No, I didn't really have any issues like that at all. That was my experience though. And,
okay.
Yeah, I basically just cleaned it up that way. That's pretty much how I cleaned my shop after too, to get it all out.
Tomorrow, in the midst of doing everything else with the flags and staining, I'm going to get that box pretty much cleaned out with the flocking, get it put together with the hinges, and then off it goes. So that'll finally get out of the shop probably next week, on Monday. But for the last thing that's in my shop, I have a big mess that I haven't taken care of for a few weeks now, and it's really driving me insane. But probably 2 weeks ago, I went over to Petrie's workshop. I mention him a lot, but he's local to me, so I literally passed him on my ride home, and he messaged me and said, "Hey, do you want my old lumber storage cart?" I needed something smaller because the one I built when I first started this thing was huge, and all my plywood scraps. And you were talking about the scraps. I was going through it today just to kind of clean it up, and I'm like, why did I keep half of this stuff? I mean, they're literally like 2x3 squares, and I'm going like, I could have probably used it for something, but I don't know what I was thinking I was going to use it for.
Firewood.
So yeah, at that point, that's exactly what it'd be used for. So, of course I didn't have the heart to throw it out. So I put it on top. So then I remember that they're there.
And then they're going to tip in and be gone for another 2 months.
Of course. So, I just got some things cleaned up. I got the old box moved out of the way. And when I put the new storage rack, it actually works out much better because I have a little storage on either side, and it's not so cramped anymore in this one area of my of the back room. So I got that, and I got to clean up soon because it seems like the mess is taking over and engulfing everything I have.
That's how my shop was when I took that little break. I left it in such a state that it was just, I went out there and I didn't even know where to begin. And it was just I go out there and I'm like, okay, I can start at this bench, and then I look at the desk. I'm like, where am I going to put this stuff? Mm-hmm. Now that I'm starting to kind of clean it up and I took that time to do that, it's definitely feeling better. I walk in, I have more space. Everything is starting to have its own area versus well, this is my dust collection, wood storage, and what have you. Now I have my hardwood in one corner, my dimension lumber on my other rack over here. I have a couple slabs over there because they're just so tall. They won't fit in that other corner. Those are going to be the ones I start with first, I believe, and start, using because they've been there the longest anyways. It would be smart to start using those in some way.
I literally just, while you were talking, I had something else I know what's on my bench as well. I just picked up a flag from another maker, Bear Country. Let me get this right. Bear Country Flags. No, I can't screw up his name. But I did a collaboration with him not too long ago, and he messaged me, asked me if I could do some CNC work on a flag that he made, and got that all done. So he messaged me the other day. He said, "Hey, can you help me out? I just need some things carved onto it, some lettering." So I picked up the flag and sitting on my CNC right now, just waiting for me to mock it up and get the thumbs up to hit the go button.
Nice. Is that what the new bit is for that you got from Tools today?
I was thinking about that new bit and using it on this flag, but my problem is my OCD kicked in immediately and went, oh my God. Actually, not OCD, more anxiety of, is it going to cut too deep? Because it's only a 45 degree bit. The one I used previous on his other flag was a 60 degree. So it won't cut as deep for certain things. So my fear is that I'm going to cut a lot deeper than I guess the last flag was.
Okay.
So I'm going to probably do a couple test pieces prior to me using this, using the new bit. Now, if it cuts great and does it exactly how I want it to, I definitely will. This one I got mainly for the more intricate things that the 60 degree bit wouldn't carve because of the bit size, seeing that it's such a larger degree. So the 45, I was looking at some videos on tools today, and the things that it can do versus the 60, they're about the same, but it can do more intricate work. So I definitely will try it out, and if it works out well and I get the desire to, I probably will use it on this one. I've been toying around the idea, but I didn't want to screw it up. So we'll have to see.
It's fair. I mean, new bit like that and you have it tested out. You don't want to go ahead and use it and then suddenly you're carving right through the flag.
Yeah, that's exactly what I don't want to do, because then I'll have a messed up flag hanging on my wall.
Talking about, upgrading, you upgraded your CNC with a new bit. I upgraded my 3D printer a little bit, and I actually bought the glass bed.
Nice.
The magnetic bed that it comes with is, how do I say this? It was okay. But I was having some issues with it adhering correctly. I haven't been doing this for very long. Let me preface that. And maybe it was something that I was doing wrong, but I immediately noticed a difference in my prints after I upgraded to that glass bed.
I'm guessing the glass would transfer better. Now, what was the material of the magnetic one? Was it like a magnetic, like rubberized coating on top?
It was it's like a mat. I don't know how to explain it. It's just it's a magnetic mat that goes onto the bed that you're able to lift it up and you could bend it and you could pop off your print. Well, for the glass, the first print I did was a center finder, and when it was done, I did it overnight, came down, and it did not move during the print, but once it cooled, I touched it and it just came right off. There was no scraping. Wow. There was no nothing. So it's definitely been a nice upgrade. And I have learned a couple of things since our last conversation about 3D printing. Is leveling the bed is so important. It can make or break your print. Even with the upgraded bed that I got with the glass, I've noticed that if it is not level, that my prints will actually come off. And it would just carry with the nozzle. And I start getting this, I'm using black PLA right now. So it's just black ball, like falling everything around. Eventually, I'm going to actually get they have a sensor you can actually attach to this and upgrade. And what it does is, instead of you having to level the bed, which you still do time to time, it actually, as it goes with the nozzle and it will level itself according to what the nozzle's reading. You won't have to do A as much, and B, if it ain't quite level, it's going to account for that and your print is not going to be messed up. Now, I knew when I bought these 4 different rolls that they're basically going to be my learning curve. I'm not heartbroken that, I've had to redo a couple prints and throw them away. There's only one, and it was my longest print to date. It was like 15 hours. I was doing a case for the tools that come with it. It kind of slides under one side of it. And, I went upstairs. I came down in the morning. And I look and I'm like, oh, it turned out pretty cool. The outside was great. I look in inside and it's like drooped. So where I was going to put the drawers and everything, it would be like almost impossible. And it wasn't necessarily the printer's fault. It was the way I placed it. For 3D printing, you have to really think about the structure and how to place it. Yeah, so that's, obviously we do a lot of woodworking talk on here, and we have some other toys that are not necessarily woodworking, but I've been making a lot of tools for the woodworking shop, and, it's been a learning curve, learning the 3D printer to do that.
I'm curious, I saw that center finder, and then I think you had 2 90-degree brackets with some holes in it. What were those for?
So I'm treating my laser as a CNC machine.
Okay.
Everyone has these 90-degree brackets that they always, they reference a certain corner or whatever.
Oh, okay.
And what I'm doing is I'm going to create a spoiler board for my laser engraver. So basically I can reference one corner to multiple cuts in the same area, or just be able to do faster cuts. Because I spend a lot of time, like for those mallets, making sure they're all aligned. And then I trace it out with like a marker on the board, and then that's how I use it. It's been reliable because I've done it. But if I had to do those mallets again, and I did the exact same cuts, the exact same size, then I'm going to have to go back and line it up. And it still takes me forever. So I'm trying to speed up that process by using my new 3D printer to update the laser itself with different brackets and like different kind of feet that I can actually use to raise and lower the laser according to the height of the material. I'm learning how to create stuff. I'm learning how to print stuff. And I'm also upgrading the shop with different little jigs and tools as I go. They don't need to be perfect for myself, but in the end, they're going to be useful regardless.
Yeah, I keep toying around the idea. I still have the MDF to make a spoil board for my CNC. And I see everybody out there, they have those 90-degree corner, and they set the machine to know that's your X and Y 0. And then all they have to do is just zero the Z on top of the piece, but it knows exactly where the corner is. Problem with me is sometimes like this collaboration flag, it's well over the size of my machine, so it's going to hang off the sides. Piece that I have to carve is directly in the center of it. So even if I put it to the 90-degree corner, it wouldn't reference the correct. It actually wouldn't even be able to carve where I needed to, so I'd actually have to slide the flag over. And I have to set my X, Y, and Z every single time to a different spot. Because I never carve in the same exact spot every single time. Sometimes like the other collaboration that I did with Bear Country Flags, he wanted an insignia on the top right corner and then an insignia in the dead center. So what I did was I actually used masking tape, knew how large the area was going to be for that insignia, masked off like a X and Y area, put a dot. So then I knew, okay, that would be my location. So all I had to do was just run the machine over and, lower it down. So I knew, okay, that's my X, Y, and Z, and then zero the machine. It's more time consuming. I just wish I could just throw a sensor on there, let it touch down and be done. But because I'm doing pieces that are larger than my whole machine, it won't work the way I want it to. So the spoil board just sits in the background, just waiting to get attached. But right now, I don't even need it.
Well, I mean, mine kind of operates the same way. So basically, my machine has the X and Y in one corner. And a couple months back, figured out where to put that X and Y to make sure that I could do, because I was designing stuff and then I would have to flip it. So it was almost like mirror image. And so it would print normal. And doing that kind of messed with you a little, especially if you forgot. Now you just ruined a piece. And it's happened. I sat down. I figured it out. I got the X and Y. I don't know why I can't say that right. X and Y in the same corner. And now I can just design it, print it, and don't have to worry about that aspect. But there's also an option in the program that I got that I can print from the current position. So I can go ahead and throw a piece on there, larger, smaller, whatever, and then move my laser and it will print from that position from the left to the right.
Okay.
Those pieces I made in the spoiler board I want to do is mostly to hold the pieces in the same spot. So if I'm doing multiple, so I don't have to keep referencing. And then in my notebook, I could be like, okay, it's at this location, because I kind of want to do a grid with it. That way I can be like, okay, so on X, it was, 2 inches up, and on Y, it was, 3 inches over. And I could be like, pop that, L bracket down if it's square, and then put it together. And then the program's saved in such a way that I can go ahead and just open it, play it, and it will do exactly how I saved it.
Nice. Yeah, because you never know who else is going to need a 14-pound Thor hammer.
You know what? I'm extremely impressed with myself, because when I measured those, it was 7.11 pounds. and the other one was
Wow.
7.12.
Wow.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, what's the chances? They're two different hammers. I made it at the same time, but they were so close in weight that, like, I was impressed. Like, that is really
Nice.
close. Yeah. I was happy with the result. I kind of, another one of those projects I hate seeing leaving because I just was so proud of him. But the reaction that I got when he picked him up, it was one of those things where I made it heavy enough. When you pick it up, you know you have it in your hands. It's not just like, oh, well, thank you, I'm gone. It was like you pick it up and admire it, and there's two of them. So he, lung them on his shoulders and had to walk off with them. But yeah, the engravings turned out great. Everything. Walnut burns really good on a laser. That's the first time doing it on walnut. And it just picks up the laser so good. I could do a lot of great shading with it. I was really impressed with it.
Those top caps that you put on there, because you didn't want to see through the mallet handle top of it, or did you just do it just to add something to it?
I added that because if you look at the Thor hammer they use in the Marvel Universe, there's actually a cap on it with some runes.
Oh,
It does say something. I don't know. I'm going to probably get flack for this, but in Viking language, I don't know what the runes say and what kind of language it's in. But I found it online, a vector image, and was able to take that and transcribe it basically onto the cap. And since it was for two military members, I was able to transcribe their rank in the center of that. It was a very customized piece with, some of the Thor aspects of it. Their call signs were Hammer 6 and 7. That being, something they're called anyway. It just fit. It fit really well. And I don't know. I love them. I love the look of them.
Yeah, it's definitely fitting. Yeah, they turned out amazing. Now, I don't know if I missed it, but what did you finish them in?
I don't know if I posted that or not. It was wipe on poly. It was a satin wipe on poly. I didn't want to go crazy. They're going to be mostly a display piece, maybe picked up once in a while. And I really didn't want to overshadow the actual wood. And wipe on poly seems to be just great for that kind of project.
Yeah.
I was on the fence of using furniture butter or, something similar to that. But I don't know. I went with something more protective because, military, they do end up moving. And I want that protected as much as possible.
Yeah, no, it definitely makes sense. And they turned out amazing. They really, really did. That walnut definitely popped. The burn looked amazing, where you engraved it. I have to say, overall, I know when we first started talking about it, I was very curious on how you were going to take those chunks of wood and turn them into two, Thor hammers. And to know that you turned them into two identical hammers that are literally a 0.01 pounds of, from each other. That's just incredible. Will you be making any more of those, a large hammer like that to be used in your shop?
Well, not for the projects that I'm going to be using. I do want to make a smaller replica of the actual Thor hammer, and because there was an aspect of it where that 45 degrees was going to be a challenge to burn, because you're putting something flat on and then it's at 45. I didn't know how that was going to turn out. So I'm going to do some experimenting with just putting it on the bed, watch it burn on the 45, see how that turns out. It's going to differ in the depth of the cut because of it being closer and further away at certain points, but I don't know how much. So I'm going to try that. And I also have, a couple of theories on how I can make it flat, cut another 45, lay it against it, and it'll create a flat piece and burn it that way. So
Nice.
I want to do one just for myself to say, hey, I did it. I already have the leather. I already have the, the material to do it. I can just go ahead and do it. But I do have another mallet I'll be making for actually two people, yourself, and then NPG Creations reached out to me and would like a mallet as well.
I can't. I'm looking forward to that. I definitely wanted to make one for myself, and been watching videos, been toying around the idea, and then when I messaged you about it, and you were like, "Yeah, what size?" Literally, I don't even think you asked me anything else. I think you were like, "Okay, what size you want it?" And I'm like, I have no idea. What would be the most usable in the shop? But I can't thank you enough for making that. I'm really looking forward to it. And eventually when I get my French cleat wall, I'm definitely making a hanger for it so that it will be front and center and be proudly displayed.
Yeah, I just I was going to actually talk to you guys and see what kind of wood you want me to use. Right now, I have some oak and some walnut. Like I have mine if you want the same look, or some color, or we're going to, sit down and do some details, or it can be a surprise.
Can I have balsa wood?
I can do balsa wood. I can't promise how it's going to hold up, and I'm going to need a lot. But, we could always try, right?
The whole thing, handle, head, everything, even the little. Oh man, I can't remember the name of it. The things to put in the top of the mallet. Why am I drawing such a bad blank? Yeah, thank you. Wow, I was going to call them pins for some reason, and I don't know why.
It's funny you said that because, like, for some reason in the back of my mind, I've been wanting to use a piece of dowel and like drill a hole that's a little smaller, and then driving a bigger dowel that's kind of like shaved at one end. It would do the same thing, but it's going to spread that wood fibers. It obviously you do like 4 cuts to kind of give it a little bit of relief, and then make smaller wedges on the side just to fill what has been basically, split apart a little bit, like a different color, maybe some, purple heart or Osage or just something different. So you almost have like, like a cross with a center.
I was watching some videos before we talked, and I saw somebody cut the reliefs for those wedges. But when they did it, they also drilled a hole at the base of the split. And do you do that on yours?
That is a technique I've seen, and I understand why they do it. I haven't, because I haven't had anything like crack all the way down. Basically, that little hole is that little bit of relief so it doesn't crack all the way down. It's smart. It's something I should do. And probably because I'm building it for someone else, I'm probably going to do it with yours and NPG Creations. So, I mean, I'm looking forward to building these because I love building mallets. And now I've got BBs, so I can definitely go ahead and do that.
Yeah, right? Well, definitely looking forward to it. I'm thinking surprise. You don't have to go anything fancy. I'm thinking surprise.
You kidding me? I get to build a mallet for people. I'm going to do a little bit of fancy.
I got what do I have here? I got some spalted maple if you want me to send that down to you.
Oh, believe me, I got a lumber yard, so don't worry about it. I'll make one pine. I'll make one of just walnut. I mean, like we could pretty much do anything right now.
I want the end all of mallets. I want a pine walnut mallet.
You know what? You might just get it.
Jesus, with some accents of balsa wood.
You know what? You're setting yourself up here. I mean, next time we talk, you might be holding up a pine, walnut, balsa wood mallet.
I don't even know what you would do with the balsa wood. I guess you could sandwich it together.
I have an idea.
You got ideas.
Yeah. Oh, you kidding me? As soon as you said that, I'm like, I got you.
Jeez. All right. Well, I trust you. So, anyways, enough of us ranting about I don't even know what, because I'm too tired to even remember half the stuff we just talked about.
Where am I?
Yeah, right. But let's get into some questions that were sent in this week, and then also a topic that we were going to get into with new tool purchases, because I was giving that a lot of thought, and on different reasons on why you would want to and whatnot. So, I mean, we could, touch on that first. We had somebody we were talking to. They were trying to decide what kind of tools that they should buy in no particular order, but I was trying to get, I'm trying to think of the best way to put this. The best way to buy something so you get the most use out of it. You don't want to buy something that's going to just sit and then you're going to look at it and go, why did I buy it?
You mean like a portable cable dovetail jig?
I don't want to talk about that.
Sorry, I'm bringing it up.
I use it. I use it for storage. The box sits there. I put stuff on top of the box, and I'm good.
You have to use it before the end of the year. I'll come over there, and we'll take it out, and we can just, take it out of the plastic.
No, it's still in the plastic. It's still in the plastic, the styrofoam. It still has the user manual on top of it, so it's still literally as it was. So, But the kind of question was, if you want to outfit your shop, should you kind of do it all at once, or should you do it, little by little? And I was giving that a lot of thought. Of course, when we first started, I know for myself, I wanted to buy every single tool that I needed, and I wanted it today. Not tomorrow, I wanted it today. Thinking now, I'm glad I didn't, because then it would have been a lot more to learn. And, I would have had to learn a joiner, a planer. I would have had to learn the table saw, the miter saw. I would have had to learn it all. Instead of me focusing on working, my time would have all been just dedicated right to just learning the tools.
So yeah, I agree with where you're coming from there. Obviously same when I first got into woodworking, I'm like, I want all the tools. I really didn't know what I needed. I really didn't know what I would be using. I had an idea, but I wasn't able to buy all the tools at once. So I started buying the tools with every project I got. So I would, charge them. I didn't know how to price either. So I would charge them basically for another tool. And I built my shop that way. I wasn't making necessary profit because I was buying a tool every time, but I was able to outfit my shop. And now I have a fully functional shop. I have to buy tools here and there, but they're not like it was in the beginning. Mm-hmm. My concern with buying, much like you already said, of buying all those tools at once, is you're learning so many tools at the same time. Are you really truly learning them, to their capability? I mean, like most of my tools, I'm still learning, how to use them to the full capability. But it's a smaller learning curve because I can use them in the general sense, and some of them a little further than that. The way I did it, I got back from my trip and I think the first thing was my miter saw. Mine was acting up. I got a new one. I had, make sure it's set up correctly, started working with it, understood it fully. And then I went to a new table saw because the one I was using quit on me. I went to a DeWalt table saw. I got to learn that. I got the features of it, how in or out, how the maintenance of it. And I was lucky too. I was watching YouTube videos of a maker that basically, was consistently using the same tool and actually did maintenance on it, adjusted things. So I already knew the tool for the most part. And I was actually, I think it's 3x3 Customs. Mm-hmm. Really cool maker. Check her out. And then, as I went, I got some used tools and had to learn maintenance on them because some of them didn't come ready to go. Really talking about Frankenstein. Frankenstein being my old bandsaw. But I learned a lot about bandsaws. I had to do a lot of research. I had to go and ask people, hey, how do I tune this so I can get a straight cut? What's the fastest way to do it? And through time, patience, and a lot of research, I learned my tool. So when I got my new bandsaw, yeah, it was a learning curve, but I knew how to set up a much harder bandsaw. So the setup here was much quicker.
Oh, I was just going to say, setup was a huge thing because if you had 10 different tools that you have to now set up to make sure that they're accurate, you might overlook a step that you wouldn't have overlooked if you, bought that one tool, was able to set it up. Because I know for myself, when I bought my joiner, I had bought a couple tools prior to that, and they were all used tools, but I didn't put enough time to set it up. I kind of just threw it together, cleaned it up, and then started using it. And I realized very quickly that they were not set up correctly. And I didn't know what it was because I thought it was just because it was a used joiner. Come to find out, I didn't set the fence up correctly. But if I spent more time on it, my setup procedure would have been way different. And I would have taken those extra few minutes just to check it at 90 and make sure that, okay, it is dead accurate. Now I can start cutting instead of just, okay, it runs. Let me just run some wood through it.
I did the same thing when I got my joiner because I got my joiner and my drill press at the same time. And when I got them, I didn't even know where I was going to put them in my shop. So I finally get them up. You have to try the joiner. I mean, that is my first luxury tool that I got in my shop. So I was all excited. I run it over and I'm like, it's not doing what it's supposed to. But I have my drill press and I have to find a spot for that. And I want to get that going because I just did a project where I needed to replicate a bunch of holes, straight up and down. And I wanted to get that going. So I would jump over there and I kind of bounced back and forth. And then when it was time for me to actually use these tools, Drill press was pretty much, pretty straightforward. But the joiner, I needed to use it and I didn't set it up correctly. So I actually wasted material because I didn't set it up correctly, and I wasted time because I didn't set it up correctly because my attention was on two different tools trying to get them set up in place. Yeah. I actually came across a post earlier this week from Huggins Wild Woodworks, and he was talking about, a past post that he went out and bought a whole bunch of tools at the same time. And it was almost perfect timing because the conversation we had with the other gentleman was the same day that he posted about him buying all these tools like a year back. So I reached out to him. I said, hey man, can you give us some pros and cons in your own opinion? You've gone through this. You lived this. You have the experience. Do you mind if we share it? And he was like, yeah, go ahead. So he wrote up a little pro and con thing for us, and we're going to go ahead and share it. I was going to ask you, man, do you want to do pros or do you want to do cons?
I guess I'll start with the pros.
All positive and all?
Yeah, trying to be. So his pros were that he was able to purchase a joiner, a planer, a router table, and an oscillating belt sander all at the same time. Now, when I read this also, this is me breaking out of the pros, I thought the same exact thing that he's going to say because this is how I purchased a few of my tools. He was able to take advantage of Home Depot's 24 months no interest. So you buy, if I remember correctly when I bought my table saw, if you buy X amount of dollars, you can get longer, no interest. So he was able to take advantage of Home Depot's 24 months no interest. He doesn't think that he would have the tools that he has without the deal. He was able to get his shop mostly outfitted at the same time, which allowed him to greatly advance what he could do with his woodworking. And it totally changed his wood shop to have all the new tools and open his eyes to the possibilities with all the new tools. So, I mean, it sounds good, especially when you can go to one store and go, I want that, and that. And next thing you know, all of it shows up into your garage or your shop. And now you look around and you go, I have a lot of tools. And now for your side, where you're going to read the downside of it.
Yeah, so in his cons, he said that it was hard to get everything set up. At the same time, as everything was new to me and it was a lot to learn and use at the same time. He wishes that he would have bought the tools separate. That way he could focus his attention on each one as he bought them. He states that he still hasn't really used the sander in a project yet because he hasn't had the time to get to the projects that he envisioned using it with. So as a summary, he stated that he would like to have bought them in a needed basis. That way he had more time to set them up and learn them. And he thinks that would be a better approach. So this is kind of like piggybacked on what we were saying earlier. Now, I didn't really have that much of an issue other than my joiner and my drill press. That was my experience. On these bigger buys like Huggins and the other gentlemen we talked to, they're talking about buying major tools that it could be very dangerous. And if not learned correctly, you could get hurt. That is my take of it. Is it's easier on the wallet. Even it might be a deal to buy one tool at a time, learn it, and then go ahead and have the next job pay for the next tool. You're going to save some time in the long run. And you might not have all the tools that you want, but in the end, you're going to be safer. You're going to know your tools, and your budget is not going to hurt as much.
So buying on a as needed basis is definitely a big thing, especially because you joked about it before, but that dovetail jig, I bought it because somebody came to me and said, I'm interested in buying a coffee table. Can you put a drawer in there with dovetails? And I went, sure. I didn't have a dovetail maker or jig at that time. So I immediately went on Amazon, found it, bought it. And as everybody knows, it's still sitting in the box. So did it hurt my wallet so much? No, not necessarily. But have I used it? No, I haven't. And I could have saved that money or put it even towards something else that I would have actually used. So that was, how I would look at it. Do I need, real, like a 40-inch planer or anything like that? No. But my thing is, if I really did need it, then I would need to upgrade it. and get that larger tool to accommodate. So necessarily you don't need to buy everything all at once just to have it in your shop, because if it's just sitting there, it's wasted money at that point. But if you have a need for it, then you can definitely buy it. But I'm in the same boat as you. I would buy as you need. You did, and you also don't need to buy new. Some things that you can find on Facebook Marketplace, Craigslist, just even go to a garage sale. You might even uncover some hidden gems, under a blanket or something.
Yeah, we've hit on it before. Buying used, there's nothing wrong with that, and buying within your realm is just as good. I started off with a lot of skill tools, and because of that, I learned what I liked and didn't like. Some people still love those tools and still use them. Good on them. I like DeWalt and I like Bosch and some of the other fine art tools because I find that they are where I need them to be. But I think we hammered that there. So let's go on to a couple other questions we have. Trails Custom Woodworks asks, what type of stain would you use on Baltic birch plywood if you were to stain over it? What do you think about that? What's your favorite stain to stain over Baltic birch?
To be honest, I'm trying to think of the last time I used Baltic birch. I want to say I still just used my Varathane. Varathane is my go-to for kind of any projects I'm doing. I have used Minwax, and we've talked about this before. Minwax and Varathane, both oil-based. I prefer the Varathane. I think it's a more vibrant stain. I think it lays. You can disagree. You could be on the Minwax train.
I'm on the Minwax
I like
train.
Minwax Clear.
I have really only used Minwax. I've used some different brands here and there, but like General Finishes is like, the stain is almost like paint because it's just so strong. Like the color you see on the can, you're going to get that color. Minwax is like, the color you see, and then a couple shades later, maybe, you kind of have to interpret that as you go.
Yeah, I have a Minwax that I think it's a gray, like a weathered gray, and it looks really nice on the can. I put it on some wood, and I'm going, no, I don't get where they're getting that color from. If I could take the color from the outside of the can and put it on the wood, it'd be perfect. But what's in the can is not what's on the label. And it's disappointing.
You have to mix it up first, man. You can't just, open it. And...
Oh, you don't take that? You don't just dip a brush in it?
You just take the oil off top, and that's what you use.
That's it. I thought that's what the whole stain was.
Man, in truth, I've used Baltic birch, and I use basically whatever the client wants. It takes it very well. I don't think there is a stain I wouldn't use on it. I've used glaze on it. I've used regular Minwax stain because I'm boring. General Finishes, I've used some of theirs. I've used paint. I mean, honestly, I like Baltic birch, especially for like some of the furniture projects I do. Honestly, you could pretty much use anything to stain it. When
I read it, I didn't think. I'm trying to think if there was like a specific stain for maybe ply or anything like that. But now, in your experience, have you had to use a conditioner with Baltic birch or any kind of ply?
Well, if I'm doing it for furniture, my go-to is Baltic birch. I've used maple and had some great results with maple, but I haven't had to use any conditioner. If I did, maybe it would change the result, but in my experience, it hasn't really needed it. But I'm much like you, and I like that have that green pop, and a little bit of lighter color doesn't drive me away from that either.
Yeah, I like the different contrasts of how the stain will take. I have not used General Finishes, and I keep looking at them. I definitely want to pick them up one time and give it a shot. But for right now, I have a ton of Varathane and a ton of Minwax downstairs. So I need to run through that before I buy anything new.
Yeah. So let's see. We could probably hit on one more question. So another question that was sent in is from Briar Woodworking. Actually, this one's more for you, man. He references you, so I'm going to hand it over to you.
All right. I'll take it over. So his question says, I know AJ finishes some of his flags so they can be hung outside, and I want to know what kind of finish he uses for that. I'm making an outdoor bar from pallet wood similar to the one I made previously, if you're following, and want to coat the wood in some type of finish. to help prevent from mold, rot, and make it last as long as possible. I just recently started making flags to go outside, but for that, since it's not being subjected to any wear and tear, it's just kind of sitting there. I've been using is it Varathane, I believe? I don't even remember. Oh yeah, the Varathane Spar Urethane. That's been working out well. I'm very curious to see how well they hold up. I do know Bear Country Flags, he was talking to me. He only uses Varathane Spar Urethane on all his flags. And he actually had a flag that he showed me that's been hanging outside for quite some time now. And it does not look any different from the day he handed it over to the customer. It's held up very well. And he told me he only puts, I think, like 3 or 4 coats of it on. And it looks as good as it did the day he gave it to them. So with something that's going to be used, glasses are going to be on it, silverware, whatnot, I would say to definitely use a stronger coating, and I would probably lean more towards the Total Bolt is it Halicon? I think I'm saying it wrong.
Yeah, I believe it's Halicon Rugged Marine Finish.
Yeah, I have not used that. I had a commission a possible commission that I was going to be using it on because the flag was going to be used 100% outside, and they wanted it as rugged as possible. But for something like a bar, I would definitely lean more towards that than just a regular like spray on poly that's meant for outside.
Yeah, and I think he mentions how he doesn't have a sprayer. So this might be a good for his application due to it being super fast drying. You don't spray it, you pour it on and it leaves a fantastic finish. Something that, I've talked to other people and they've told me. I haven't used it myself, but I'm curious. I actually might use it in the future because, I'm getting a little bit more outdoor projects. So I might actually pick some up and give it a whirl.
Now, the only thing that I would say is just make sure you coat all the sides. You don't want any exposed wood, because even if you just do the top and it's got exposed edges, then that's definitely going to allow the moisture to get sucked in that way.
Absolutely, yeah. You don't want it to get moisture and then all of a sudden bow or crack or anything crazy. So
of course you'll notice it right away before probably anybody else does, because you're going to be probably critiquing the piece when it's outside, looking it over and make sure it's okay. But that's the way I would go. I would go with, with an epoxy type
varnish, yeah,
instead of the spar urethane. Actually delivering those 4 flags, those ones that have been taking forever for me to finish. I finished them. I messaged the person and they were like, yeah, hey, I'll be there later this week. I was like, man, now they got to sit in the shop still. So I'm curious on how they'll survive on the outside, once they hang them up.
Well, you put quite a few coats on there, and you've dealt with the varnish you were using, so they're going to hold up great. I mean, they turned out great. They're going to hold up great. And in a couple of years, I hope they send you a picture, and it looks just as vibrant as it did leaving your shop.
I never even posted those up. I've only put them on stories.
Really?
I just realized, man, I've been so far behind on my posts. It's bad. I got a lot of flags that I still have not posted up, so I got to get to that.
Well, I mean, like, life happens, man. We all get busy. It's just part of it's part of life.
Definitely.
So Kumo Does Woodworking sent in a great question, and I think we have agreed on making that a topic for next week's episode, because it basically was board feet and lumberyard lingo, and that is almost an entire episode. So hey, man, we're gonna get to that next week. So, man, some tips and tricks. We talked about this one before. You use on a cutting board, so you probably already know where I'm going with this, but basically using glue and sanding to cover some cracks, right? So while doing those Thor hammers, I actually came across a couple portions of it where in the handle or on the actual head, it glued just fine, but there was just a little bit where the glue didn't match up. So what I did is I use the glue method where I put some wet glue on it and then sand it over, and the lines just disappear, especially with that darker wood, because I'm using Type Bond 2, which dries a little bit darker anyway. So it blended really, really well. In the past, I've actually thought about taking some of the sawdust from the various types of wood and keeping them in like a baby food jar. That way I can mix up the glue there. But with this method, I don't think I have to do that. I don't even think I'm going to buy any kind of wood filler. This works so well, and it matches the color that you're using to the T. And
Oh yeah.
I'm actually going to do another little experiment and see how it stains. So I'm going to I'll use pine, and I'm going to, join some wood together, maybe leave a little crack in there if I can, and then do that method and stain over it. Because some wood fillers out there, when you stain them, it does not match. Like it definitely can cause some issues. And I'm curious because most glues are not stainable. If the wood fibers take over enough to cause the stain to actually stain correctly, or if there's a difference in that.
It's definitely because I only used it on the cutting board, so I didn't stain it. But that's actually not a bad idea to even just give it a shot. I mean, you could even take a piece of wood and just almost like gouge it out a little bit, like score it or something like that. I mean, the pine's so soft, so you could even do that. I do know that, I see all my glue lines when I glue up my flags, because when I'm staining them, the red stripes or the blue union, I always notice the glue that I didn't notice when I was grinding it or anything like that. Because when I'm grinding them, I try to get as much glue off as possible, because I know that the stain will not take. But I'm very curious to see what you find out, if I don't get to it, before you do, on how that actually takes with the the glue and the sanding technique. Because if it works out, then that's my go-to for any project. That's my go-to for right now on cutting boards, where I know that the oil will absorb. I'm curious how it'll do with stain.
Well, I also have another tip for you when it comes to finding those little bit of glue patches. So I actually posted about this in one of my stories. I know about this and I've done it in the past, but for some reason with these hammers, I didn't do it. I don't know why. I know about it. I've told people to do it. I didn't follow my own advice. So the tip is essentially when you get done with a piece, and if you're staining it, or even if you're going to sand it or put some finish on it, glue is going to show up. It tends to, even with the method that I used, by taking a little bit of glue, sanding it over, the leftovers that got produced by doing that, I thought I got with the sandpaper. Well, there was a little bit of marks here and there where it didn't. So it pushed the glue and those fibers to the right or the left. And when I put that nice finish on it, it showed up a little bit.
Oh.
Yeah, so it was a little bit later because of the part that I was doing is a little bit lighter. So I had to resand that side and then reapply the finish. So before you apply finish or you apply the stain, you take a water bottle and you just spray it lightly, and it pops the grain and pops the colors, much like when you do on a cutting board. And that will show you all those little glue spots that you missed. So right then and there, before you get into staining and finishing, you can go take care of them and know that, well, in theory, you took care of everything, and it should go fairly, straightforward during that process.
Yeah.
So I know I didn't do that. I had to go back and sand those spots down and take care of it that way. At least it wasn't that big of a deal. There were just minor spots. In fact, I think my wife even said, I didn't even see those until you pointed them out. And I'm like, well, I want these perfect. So that's what I did.
On most of my flags, because on the flat ones, I'll run them through the drum sander to get, the glue off and whatnot, instead of just sitting there sanding them. And once I get done, I look at the board, and from the naked eye, you go, oh, okay, all the glue is off of it. And it must have sanded it down to literally almost completely off, but it was light enough that I couldn't see it, but it was still there when I burnt it. The burn, of course, won't do anything to the glue, and it just goes right around it. And I'm like, wow, I got a lot of glue on this. I saw drips, this, that. I had to resand the whole thing down. But it looked like it almost like etched into the wood, like the glue itself, because once it was sanded, it was smooth. There was nothing to it. You didn't notice it from looking at it. You didn't notice it when you felt it. But man, once I took that torch to it, immediately I saw all the glue mistakes and had to resand the whole thing. it's not fun when you run a torch over it and you see all those glue.
It's not fun anytime you're standing, finishing,
No.
or I guess torching,
True.
and you see like the glue pop, and you're like, I swear I sanded this thing like 5 times. I started at 60, went to 80, 100, 120, 150. I went up and I did it like 3 times each, and somehow that couple spots of glue shows up. It gets you a little upset.
Oh yeah, definitely. I real quick. I did have one that it almost put me in tears because I was like, why is this happening to me? And it happened on multiple flags that same day. So I was going, okay, one's not too bad. Okay, the second one, I mean, come on. How many? They look perfect. Why is so much glue still there? I made it through. It wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And of course, we critique it to the littlest, the most minute thing that no one else is going to notice, but I know it's there. I know that glue mark is there. But anyway, that's my tale of woes.
Well, you want to wrap this one up?
Thank you for joining us on episode 7 of Sawdust Nation. If you have a question that you'd like to submit, you can send us a DM to our Instagram. Mine is Crafted in New Jersey, and Josh is North Country Woodworking.
Or you can reach us at our Sawdust Nation podcast page on Instagram. Or, you can go ahead and email us too at sawdustnationpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for joining us. See you next time. See ya.
See you.